Our first guest has been in meetings and hearings recently with both Powell and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen to discuss the stresses on the U.S. economy. We welcome in Texas Congressman Pete Sessions. Congressman Sessions, good to see you.
Good morning.
So, Congressman, this is a pretty startling change in tone from the Fed chief. You've spoken to him about the inflation crisis. What are your thoughts?
In fact, Jay Powell, I think, is doing a great job also, and I need to say that because we need his sort of philosophy of what he's talking about. But we're failing to talk about what the real problem is, and that is that the politics and the philosophy behind this administration, Democratic Party, is they want to give favor to the same items that would make favorable conditions for us to have inflation. High government spending, keeping people at home away from work, not allowing the consumer to be a part of this, and adding $110 billion from the Fed to the economy every month to keep it floated. And these conditions are very favorable to not only inflation, but making sure that it stays. And this is where the chief, in my opinion, was trying to walk a fine line. Well, the fine line is not there. Even Secretary Yeldon, who spoke the other day before us, understands public opinion, and public opinion is very important. She continues to say, and the Build Back Better plan is paid for. It is not. Puts a $400 billion hole into the plan. And so they know what they're trying to do. They're trying to get it done just like they did Obamacare. They're trying to get it done no matter what the truth of the case is. And they're holding truth hostage, and the American people understand that.
Congressman Sessions, you know, you've spoken to both of these folks, and I'm sure that you have pressed them about the concerns that spending another $1.75 trillion on Biden's welfare expansion would exacerbate an already bad situation when it comes to debt and inflation. What is their response?
Well, their response is that they care about people and that we need to be oriented to people and people's needs. And yet, on the other hand, they want to talk about building our infrastructure and making these changes to add jobs in our economy. But they're creating a permanent circumstance where people would not come to work, where people would rely upon the government. And the government, in this case, is perfectly willing to pay the price. The problem is that we're embedding into not only inflation, but permanent long-term unemployment, and this is bad for the nation.
Well, and ultimately, a very small number of people paying for those folks that are staying home or are trapped in a cycle of government dependency. Correct?
Well, that's exactly what this is. It is the Democrat Party philosophy. We heard this years ago when they said that this will allow people to spend time with their families and that they believe that they have a family-first policy. Well, that's not what it should be. A power model is that people in the household care enough about not only going to work, but bettering the lives of those people, whether they're children or whether they're other adults that are in their family, to show that we can use economic powers of the free enterprise to make everybody's life better.
Yeah, we've been hearing for 50 years, if you spend billions of dollars more on these programs, and there are 150, I believe, new programs in Build Back Better or whatever they're calling it, that you're going to end poverty or that you're going to improve education or whatnot. And there's no empirical data to suggest that it has ever done any of those things. Congressman, I want to move on to the other big story of the week, the new Omicron variant. The president has announced a number of new measures to combat this. Now, do you believe, though, that the administration is getting out in front of the science again, potentially for political purposes?
I do believe it's politically based, and it is meant to empower the way that they think. But this Omicron variant is part of an ongoing circumstance that we have been with since COVID-19, and that is an excuse for them to be able to run the gambit in our lives. And we must know that if we fall victim to this, we will lose the free enterprise system. We will lose our desire and our ability to pay for what lies around the corner. I think the very best effort that I have seen means that there will be changes, there will be new variants. But what we need to do is to take the vaccine, if you choose to, avoid a government that's big enough to tell people what to do, and a free enterprise system that is resilient and able to keep turning the corner on technology and to move our country forward. We have to work through this. Yeah. You've seen a lot of other countries, Australia and across Europe, that fall victim to socialism, and it will permanently cripple their future.
Yeah, you got Germany is announcing a lockdown, even though nobody has died from this, and the folks who even found it said that it doesn't present any differently than any of the other variants. I can't let you go, Congressman, without discussing the border. You're in Texas. The administration this week grudgingly restarted Remain in Mexico. 1.2 million people have crossed the border. Do you think that this is really going to help at this point?
Well, I think we've got to take a strong stand. But what we've got to do is to come together as a nation. We have federal law enforcement that is attempting to do their job, but they're not being backed up by rule of law. And this is a bad sign for us. The carnage that comes here is not just in the lack of rule of law, the lack of the money. It is the carnage of the drug cartels that are embedding themselves through the Democratic Party. They are making sure that they are in this country, and they will kill our children and the users of this country. And it is by far the biggest issue that faces Texas, our ability to control our own border and to be able to have our own sovereignty.
Yeah, 1.2 million people and about 11,000 pounds, I believe, of drugs and fentanyl alone so far this year. Congressman Pete Sessions of the great state of Texas.